Megan Bell. I'm the co-owner of Underground Books.
What's the other owner's name?
Josh Nacy.
How long have y'all two owned the store?
Okay, so Josh opened the doors in March of 2011. So we just celebrated 7 years the Sunday before last. And 2 weeks after Josh opened Underground Books, I walked in the door, and then I basically never left. I just kept coming back very, very frequently and spending all day here talking to him and shelving books and being helpful, I think, and generally courting him. So and that ended up working out really well for me. I worked here in various capacities until I graduated UWG in December of 2013, and then I came on full-time as co-owner. Josh had started selling books online from his own collection, and he outgrew his house, so he was looking for an office space on the square, and this had been vacant for a while, and Nell, the owner at the time, made him a deal where he could clean it up and pay a really great rent at the time. So as he was cleaning it up over a year and starting to bring his online books inside, he noticed that there was a lot of foot traffic. So he decided, why not just open it as a bookstore too and have both online and in-store inventory. That's the basic gist of it.
Well, how did you personally get into books?
One of the things that probably the most important thing I learned from my mother was to always bring a book with you wherever you go. You never know when you'll get a flat tire and you'll be on the side of the road, or it's going to take a really long time to see the doctor or something like that. There's always time to read, and my mother didn't always provide for like the basic necessities for me and my siblings, but she always provided books. My best memories of her, she passed when I was 15, but my best memories of her are we lived in Chattanooga at the time, and we would go to McKay's in Chattanooga and the Walden Books in the mall and Barnes & Noble if we were feeling very, very fancy. And those are just like some of my best childhood memories. And then when I came to UWG, I was a pre-nursing major, and I was in the honors college and needed an honors college credit for my first semester, and they dumped me in honors creative writing with Dr. Greg Frazier, and that was kind of it for me. I tried really hard not to be an English major, but in the end I capitulated. And that just, of course, increased my love of reading because I finally had this incredible community to discuss these things with. And then when a friend said, hey, this new bookstore is opened off of the square, I jumped at the chance to come.
What is the most important book to you, and what's the most important book to you in your youth?
Oh, wow. Okay, so I'll answer the youth one first because that's really obvious, and it's Harry Potter series. I think we can all agree that you're not culturally literate in the United States if you haven't read Harry Potter. But it meant so much to me. It still does. I have a full Ravenclaw outfit. It's still my favorite book series. But I think because of my home life, Harry meant a lot to me because he was orphaned and didn't have a great home life with his aunt and uncle. And also because school was such a magical place for him, and it certainly was for me. A very stable and nurturing and exciting atmosphere, but also because of Hermione Granger, of course, because she's a legend and she's my favorite character. But I think that the Harry Potter series touches on every aspect of the human experience. So, but also especially relevant to our time, themes of terrorism and Order of the Phoenix, not being able to trust news sources all the time, having to decide for yourself, and using critical thinking in order to do that, not being able always to trust adults. And right now we can certainly see the incredible generation that's following us as millennials right now, really having strong opinions and acting on them. I see Harry Potter as being a serious inspiration for a lot of the activism of our time. And as for what was the question, what is the most
important book to you as an adult?
To me as an adult. I get asked very often what my favorite book is, and I think you probably hear from almost any bookseller or librarian that that's an extremely difficult question. We're reading constantly, and books come to mean so much to us at different points in our lives based on what we're reading. It's so hard because there's books that I like The Handmaid's Tale is by Margaret Atwood is one of my very favorite books of all time. It's not something that has influences who I am on a daily basis, but I think it's a perfect book and very meaningful. I don't know. I think you ask any bookseller or librarian, they won't have a perfect answer to that question because it's a really tough one. And then we're honestly thinking about all the time. Okay, actually, I'll change my answer. Okay, I will say, and I will revise the question for you too. I'm going to say that the most influential piece of literature in my life as an adult is one poem, which is Wild Geese by Mary Oliver, which I encourage everyone to read and memorize because it's something I think people often need to hear. Wild Geese is about that it starts with you do not have to be good. You do not have to walk 100 miles through the desert repenting, and I've missed a line there, but basically that you belong to the world and that you have a place there and you don't have to feel guilty about that. Very empowering poem.
What's one of the things that brought you into the bookstore space is I want to be a part of this?
The bookstore in the past 7 years has changed so much. Last year for our anniversary, I looked at pictures from the first, the opening party, and it's insane how different it looks. We've grown and refined, and we've expanded. We started only in that room. But even then, I feel like it's such a cozy, welcoming, magical place. And I think all bookstores are magical in one way or another. But this immediately felt like home. And I practically live here, so it might as well be. I would say what made me decide to come on as co-owner, I wanted to be a professor. But I looked at what the market was like for professors right now, and it's so hard. The challenges in the bookstore industry aren't easy either by any means, but I looked at the challenges that were facing professors today, and also probably the most compelling challenge was having to relocate anywhere in the country. And once I'd found Carrollton, it really was to me, I wasn't born here, but I planned to die here, claiming it as my hometown. I didn't want to leave. And I looked at bookselling, especially how we do it here, which is rare and antiquarian, used and a little bit of new, as really offering me similar opportunities for my passions, like creative research on the rare and antiquarian book side, being able to read constantly, being able to teach in small ways, not in formal ways, but it's so much fun when a young person comes in and is interested in the rare and antiquarian books to talk about the history of the book and bindings and how paper has changed, etc. So that's at the end of the day why I chose to be a bookseller. And to be a small business owner, because there's a lot of freedom to do what you want, even though it comes with a lot of responsibility for all of the risk involved.
What's some of your favorite strange and obscure titles or versions of books that you found?
So, that I've personally handled, let's see, because that does going to come in a little bit. So, one, I'll say because you're wearing a Stephen King t-shirt. Right now we have a signed first printing of 11/22/63, and it's in this like really gorgeous custom clamshell slipcase. And that's really cool. I haven't read a ton of Stephen King because I am a tiny, sensitive baby and can't handle scary stuff. But it's really cool to have that. We've had, we sold this, but like the day after I listed it online, which hurt. It hurt to ship it. But we had a true first printing of the book that would become Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. It was originally titled something different, but it was incredible. That book is on every single person's staff picks shelf at Underground Books. And it's often, if someone comes in, and sometimes people do, saying, I need a book that is going to completely change my life, that's the book we put in their hands. So then it's just incredible to have a first printing of that. Those are both modern books. Also, one of my favorites I still have is, and it's massive, it's huge, is from the late 1700s, and it's Bell's Pantheon. It's a dictionary of Greek and Roman gods, goddesses, mythological creatures. It's really gorgeous plates. And part of why I love it is it's by John Bell, which of course my last name is Bell, so that was cool, and certain that we're not related, but still fun. But he was not just a publisher or writer, but also a bookseller, and called by his peers the very Puck of bookselling. So it's fun to think of somebody who is mischievous and rascal, writing and publishing this and printing it. And it's beautiful. And it's from the late 1700s, which is really cool too. Oh, we also had at one point a love letter written to Jack London, and that was really crazy because it was really weird and intimate, and it was actually to his mistress, who he later married, and he was writing it to her right after he was about to sail away, and she was at the dock with him, but he couldn't kiss her because it wasn't his wife, it was his mistress, so he couldn't do that in public. So in the letter he says that instead he kissed his friend on the ship, like his guy friend, which is a strange way to express yourself, but very interesting. And of course, just cool to have something handwritten by a major American author. And that one is now at, there's a specialty bookshop museum associated with Jack London out west. So it's cool to place that in an appropriate place as well.
That there's staff picks out there?
Mm-hmm.
Could you talk about how y'all had the idea to do that? And
yeah, well, a lot of bookstores include staff picks. We are reading all of the time, and there's always so many books that we want to recommend. It's nice to have them all in one place, because when someone comes in and asks for a recommendation, or sometimes people are like, oh, I love Miranda's shelf or Maria's shelf, and I just want to read what they're reading next. On the whole other side of the spectrum, we also all love and have read Tom Robbins' Still Life with a Woodpecker, which is really funny and sexy and not Man's Search for Meaning. Man's Search for Meaning was written when Viktor Frankl had just gotten out of a concentration camp. So very different themes. We both love them both. So that's fun. We're all big fans of Kurt Vonnegut as well. And we all read each other's staff picks too, so there's a lot of other things we have in common. And Harry Potter, Margaret Atwood, all of us love. So there's that. I think at a lot of bookstores you'll see like this. They'll have, these are called shelf talkers, and basically your review of the book, and often it'll be like face out in the middle of its appropriate section. I love having, we do that as well, but I love having them all in a concentrated area too, because it's fun to look at what the shelves have in common and what's different about them. All in one place is fun. And then I put gold stars around the entire section because gold stars are fun.
What's your favorite section in the store?
My favorite section is science fiction and fantasy.
Right there.
Yeah. Which you'll see there's just like 5 shelf talkers that are all by me, which is, but we're all sci-fi fantasy fans here. You'll find a lot of that on each of our staff picks as well. But yeah, it's my favorite section.
Is this the only underground books, or is there a plan to?
I don't know. We opened a second location a year and a half ago, in October of 2016, in Serenbe, and that one is actually, we called it Hills and Hamlets Bookshop because it's completely different from Underground Books, and also because Underground Books is literally underground. So there is that aspect. We like the idea of having a geographic aspect to the bookstore name. And so Serenbe is a planned community in Chattahoochee Hills, Georgia, which is about 35-40 minutes from here. And Serenbe is focused on the arts, nature, agriculture, farm to table, new urbanist, urban planning, stuff like that. And that was a really big decision to open up a second shop, but we found Serenbe so compelling. We have so much in common with those principles that we were excited to open a shop there. And we felt they needed a bookstore too, and we'd heard that a lot. The reason that we went out there was because several residents had reached out to us and said that that was something that they would want. But I think that that's the last one. That's what I tell Josh. Like, 2 bookstores is good, but who knows? It can be very tempting at times. You might be interested in, I don't know if that'll be in the scope of your documentary, but when talking about small business, often funding is very important. At Underground Books, in 2012, Nell, who owned the building, not just our original space, but right here on the side and above us, she was ready to sell the building, and she and the buyer of the top agreed to do a condominium agreement with us. But in order to put the down payment on this part of the building, we crowdfunded because we couldn't afford it on our own. And that was a really incredible experience. We raised even more than what we needed to do the down payment, and we also expanded into this space, which has been really amazing. And similarly, but not quite the same, when we were thinking about opening Hills and Hamlets, we did kind of private and selective crowdfunding throughout Serenbe and Chattahoochee Hills. And one of the things we love so much about crowdfunding is that when it's done well and it's successful, not only are you raising the funds that you need, but more importantly, through the act of crowdfunding, I feel like that's how, for instance, a bookstore can become a real community space. So you're getting input from all of those people who are contributing to your campaign. And often, too, the perks can be ways to foster ownership in the community. For instance, here we had one level where you could choose a book that we would stock forever. And over at Hills and Hamlets, we have one that we call that our Founders Circle, and our Founders members get to have a book that we always stock, but that has it's their recommendation, it's their staff pick, so to speak. Especially like at Underground Books, I mean, Josh opened Underground Books the peak of the recession, so crowdfunding was very important to keeping this place open.
So would you say that's one of the things that makes this bookstore unique?
Absolutely, I think so. There are a lot of unique bookstores, important bookstores that didn't open via crowdfunding, like the Strand or Powell's or something, but I think certainly it's part of what makes Underground Books successful as a community space. Because there's just so many people who have their hand in this. People who painted these walls,
Well, is there anything you would like to talk about that I didn't ask you about?
Let's see. Well, I often get folks who come in the store and lament the death of the independent bookstore, because several years ago that was really huge in the news, that Amazon was crushing us, and that's certainly, like, that's a pressure on our trade. But what hasn't been as equally broadcasted is the fact that since I think it was 2016, more independent bookstores have been opening than closing. Another, like, myth that I'd like to correct is the idea that kids aren't reading, because actually young people are buying more print books than older people today. We have a lot of optimism about the future of the independent bookstore in America, and I think we have every right to be so. We get so much support and enthusiasm from readers. That means so much to us. That's why we keep the doors open. So that's an important, I think, thing to note, that independent bookstores are doing well. We certainly need support. We certainly need, like, if you want any small business at all, independent bookstore or music shop or coffee shop or vinyl shop or cafe or any brick and mortar, if you want us to be here, then you have to come here regularly, or else we won't be anymore, and that's the trade-off. But I do feel very optimistic.
And how do you feel about e-readers?
A lot of people, there's another misconception, think that ebooks are, like, our enemy. But personally, yeah, and I think a lot of booksellers will say this, like, not fans personally for our own reading lives after work, just because there is so much romance in a print book in your hands that has a touch and feel and smell aspect to it, and especially if you're in rare and antiquarian books. I think that's really prevalent. But we support ebooks, especially when you're thinking about it as an accessibility issue, because some people can't read books either because of the size of the print, or because of like physical handicaps with hands. So anything that encourages people to read, we're 100% behind. I think that actually the e-reader has done something for rare and antiquarian books, which is great, because what we've seen is a renewed understanding of the book as an art object. It's not just a text, but also the design of the binding and the way it looks on a shelf or feels in your hands. And that's been really great for rare and antiquarian books, especially among millennials, which is part of our mission, is to nurture the next generation of collectors, stewards of these really beautiful and important books. So actually, I think that it's worked out pretty well with e-readers in the marketplace. Plus, they peaked lower in their percentage of market share than was expected and have plateaued, so it's not been a massive threat. I think for sure several years ago when they came out, there was some panic, but especially when you're in the used rare and antiquarian, it's not so scary. For new books, it certainly is, and new books are a little tougher.
What is the most important thing to you about having a bookshop like this, where you have not just new books, but a collection of older, rare, antiquarian, and other types of stuff?
It's fairly rare for a bookstore to do all three, and I love that we do all three. One, because like my passion for books doesn't end at like one condition level or another, you know. I love having used books because they're more affordable for people, and that's important people to be able to afford to read and own books. With Rare and Antiquarian, that's just our passion. There's just so much I learn every single day just from looking at Rare and Antiquarian books. I think booksellers in general have a very strange assortment of information in their brains, but especially Rare and Antiquarian booksellers. I have a friend who works for the largest Rare and Antiquarian firm in the United States, Bowman Books, and she recently posted a picture of I think, I'm going to say this was like 18th century, but it could have been earlier, but it was a treatise on urinalysis, and it has hand-colored urine vials in its pages. That's weird things that you wouldn't know otherwise, I suppose. And then with new books, of course we get super excited about the new things that are coming out. We're reading advanced review copies, and there's books that we're like, really get behind this. Really want everyone to read it, but I probably won't get a used copy in for a year or 2 years or 3 years, who knows. And not to mention keeping in stock classics and things that are our absolute favorites. So I always want to have a copy of Man's Search for Meaning in the store, and not won't always come in used at a predictable time. But I love having a mix too, because I think it keeps the store really exciting, and you really do never know what you'll find. And also from the business side, you're not keeping all of your eggs in one basket, for instance. It contributes more stability to our small business. But also it's fun. That's the main reason.
What store holidays do you have? They have. I know next door they have. Well, not next door, but the record store has Record Store Day. And how many? Is there a bookstore day?
Yeah, there is. So there's two, kind of. So there's Indie Bookstore Day is coming up. It's in late April. It's the last Saturday in April. And that's similar to Indie Record Store Day. There's a lot of exclusives and giveaways. For instance, there's one that I don't know, and they haven't told us anything about at all. We just had to kind of blind order it.
Where are you located again?
Underground Books is located just off historic Adamson Square in downtown Carrollton, Georgia, at 102 Alabama Street, just down the street from the Vinyl Frontier, who are also our little buddies. Yeah, love Carrollton too. I'm constantly putting on my little Carrollton Tourism Bureau hat, so I'm resisting saying all the Carrollton stuff right now, but they probably know. It's a great place. Hills and Hamlets Bookshop is located in Grange Hamlet of Serenby in Chattahoochee Hills, Georgia.
Thank you for sitting down and let me interview you today.
It was my absolute pleasure, Zach. Thanks so much.
And then, I guess choose one to hold up.
Should just reading all three. 'Cause